Let me tell you just a little bit, very, very quickly, about what's on page 24 in the white book. If you remember in the first class, I told you about in the 1970s, educators came up with sign systems. Absolutely, positively not systems, and they were used with the sole intention of trying to educate deaf people, and specifically trying to teach them English as much as humanly possible. So very, very often you would find in deaf schools, in science class, they would be teaching English, and in social studies class, they'd be teaching English, and in math class, they'd be teaching English, and they were always teaching English. English is really important. So these systems that were created in the 1970s, again, just to educate, but they had influence, and they spilled over into real ASL, real American Sign Language. So they mostly don't exist anymore. I'm going to just really quickly go through them because someday you might run into them. But signed English is what they tried to come up with. Signed English is a generic thing, and it's just a way of signing ASL signs in English word order. And of course, hearing educators who spoke English and learned some sign language found that much, much easier to sign in English word order than to actually learn the language that people were using, ASL. So they just took the signs and they put them in English word order. So signed English doesn't refer to any specific system, but in 1970s, they came up with a whole bunch of those. Contact signing or pigeon sign English. A pigeon happens anytime two languages come in contact with each other, and people need to communicate life needs, just desperate communication and nothing more than that. And so contact signing is just another name for basically signed English. It happens when sign language and English come in sort of contact. Cued speech was just bizarre because it was based on six hand shapes around your mouth, and they were meant to represent sounds. Sounds are inaccessible for deaf people, and so it was a huge failure. But they would do whatever it was around. I never learned it. And all I knew about it was you would sign exactly what you were saying. So if you would cue exactly what you were saying. If you would cue, I'm gonna say, as opposed to I'm going to say. I don't know anything about it more than that. It's just bizarre. It's all based on sound. It's all really long gone. Total communication means the kitchen sink, basically. Try everything that works with a deaf person, and it means everything. If you draw to get your point across, then that's total communication. Or if you mime and you act out, you gesture, then that's total communication. It's very bizarre. And then kind of the most bizarre, or tied for most bizarre with cued speech, was the Rochester method, where they was at the Rochester School for the Deaf. It was very localized, but they fingerspelled everything. Everything. They fingerspelled everything. It was crazy. It was crazy. And I had the misfortune to meet a couple who grew up using Rochester method. And by the time I met them, they were an elderly couple, and they weren't going to change. And just everything they did, they fingerspelled at the speed of light. It was just bizarre. I couldn't understand anything they were saying. Okay, moving on. Those are all gone. Those are all part of history. Page 30. Lexicalized lexicalized fingerspelling. Okay, yeah, that's a good description of it. It's fingerspelling that looks more like a sign than a fingerspelled word. And so there are a bunch of these signs, and this is a good list of signs that deaf people are very, very prone to fingerspell and fingerspell instead of signing. And these are things that have signs sometimes, usually, but they just fingerspell them because it's easy. So, air, it's really fast. All, and as I mentioned before, all can be done to incorporate if you're all that you're talking about. So if you're talking about all of you, it can be all. You're starting with A, you're doing L, but you're doing it in a way that you're pointing to all of you. Apartment, back. Again, these are. I guess there's a sign for back, but deaf people always fingerspell back when it comes up. Bank, there is no actual sign for bank. It's just that hand shape is bank. Beach, it's just B and it ends up in a CH. This is a sign for beach. Sometimes you'll see the sign for beach, but often you'll see it just beach. Burn is just B, and then you flip the R around and the U and the R around and end up in the N. Burn, burn. And again, you can do it where you have a burn if it's applicable. So if you got burn on your arm, burn, or you're on your leg. Bus is just BS. And this is a sign for bus. It's hard to do. You see this much more often, because look at what a pain this is. Look at what a pain this is, and look at how easy this is. So you'll see this much easier, much more often, because it's just so much easier to do. Busy. It's just BY. Okay. This is bus. I told you with 2B hand shapes. This really comes from signed English. Well, no. Okay. This is car, showing kind of the shape of a car. with two C hand shapes. Again, compared to CR, it's just so much more of a pain to do this than just fingerspell this. It's so much easier. Club, as far as I know, there is no sign for club. It's just this, CLB. Pool. I guess there's a sign for pool. Department. Did. Obviously assigned English because did does not exist in ASL, but if that person's going to sign it, they'll spell it like that. Do. This is a sign, also meaning if you have a question mark, question, facial grammar. What did you do? Dog is DG, and you can either just do it in the air, DG, or you can do it and slap your thigh. Dog, dog. Either one. Early has a arc shape to it. EA. Early. What letters are in there? That's the sign for early, though. There is no other sign. Fix is just FX. Gas is just GS. Ha, as in ha ha ha, as in laughter, as in a lot of times that first person will sign this as sarcastic laughter. Ha 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 ha, as in not funny at all. Hurt is H, and then you do the same kind of swing around you do with burn, but you end up with a T, and the same as burn. You can do it where you are hurt, if it's applicable. It hurts. My tooth hurts. Example, my tooth hurts. Job is JB. This is work. But to say I have a job, there's no other sign for it. It's just JB. No good. NG, no good. Deaf people use this a lot for no good. And it's that outward motion with your hands also, no good. Too bad. GB. This is a sign for ref, but it's kind of in the way. Much easier just to do ref as in referee. This is the sign for vegetables, and with a V, and fruit with an F. But it's also very easy just to do vegetables. Yes, ref is supposed to look like a whistle, a referee blowing a whistle. This is the sign for what? What? But you will very often see deaf people's fingerspell what? Starting with W, doing a flip around and ending up in T. What? What? And it's end of the sentence. In English, we put it in the beginning of the sentence. In ASL, we put it at the end of the sentence. As with all the question words. So when is W and then ending up in when. You flipping your fingers around and ending up in when. This is the sign for when. It's like you're making a little clock on the top, on your index finger. That's the sign for when, but if you want to do that, when. This is the sign for why. Why. But you can also do why. Starting with W and ending up with why. Why. You can do well, but I showed you a pun. Anybody remember the pun I showed you for wow? Yes, yeah, all right, all right. You have to have the O mouth. You're making me smile, so I can't do it. And yes is very, very, very often finger spelled. This is a sign for yes. This is yes, I will be there. Yes, or whatever. Yes, 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 yes. I don't know why. And then abbreviations on page 31, AC for air conditioning. These are very, very often seen ones. Avenue, AVE. BBQ, BLVD, CD, compact disc. Deaf people generally don't use music compact discs, but DVDs. High school, there's no other sign for high school that I know of is other than just HS. Would you go to high school? High school where? ID real quick, ID. And OT, it makes sense. Okay, the states follow the post office. There are certainly exceptions that you'll find out there in the world, like MASS and CONN for Massachusetts and Connecticut. Don't worry about it. Just do MA and CON, whatever Connecticut is. You don't have to worry about it. And then numbers. Okay, ready? Here we go. Here comes a million. All right, let's start with 0. I didn't do 0 yet. 0 is different from O in that it's shaken. So you have to shake the 0. If you don't shake it, it's going to be confused with the letter O. Your book says you can sign with the numbers 1 through 5 with your palm, either forward or in. My rule is always, unless I'm doing something like a zip code, where obviously the numbers that I'm doing are all 1 through 9. I do the numbers with my palm in for 1 through 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. Continuing. 11, 12, 13. I don't know if you can hear it. It's thundering and lightning where I am here. 14, 15, 16. Shake it twice and leave it out so that the person can see how many fingers are out. 17, 18, 19, 20. What's it remind you of? 4 and 20 black words. 4 and 20 black words. 21, 21 gun salute. 22, all double numbers are sort of a little bit balanced. 22. Okay. 23. There's two signs. Either 23, or 23. This is informal, casual, okay? But you'll see it. 23. 24 is L4 or 24. I didn't go into L4s last time I talked about it, but 20 is often done with a sign for 21 or L. 24, 25, or 25, 25, or 25. That one has its own sign. All right. 26, you can do 26 or L6. 27 or 27. 28 or 28. 29 or 29. 30. 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 39, 40. I'm going to skip ahead. 50, 60, 70. Now, officially, the formal sign is 70. 70. Leave your thumb, leave your pinky up so that you can see that that's what you're signing. But deaf people often sign 70 like that. And the same thing with 80. 90. Okay. And then we go Roman numerals. 100. 200. 300. 400. 500. Now notice with, I would say 300 on, the official formal sign is 3C, but you'll often see 300. The official formal sign is 4C, but you'll often see 400. And the same thing with 500. Okay. $600, $700, $800, $900. What's the Roman numeral for 1,000? M, thank you. And it's done in the palm. So 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, 80,000, 100,000, 1,000,000. Right, 3 times. At the bottom, at the base of your palm, center, and then towards the tip. 1,000,000, 2,000,000, 3,000,000, 4,000,000. I didn't go into billion and trillion. Let's do that. It's really easy. There's no sign. Billion is fingerspelled, trillion is fingerspelled, but sort of fast. B, billion. You sort of have to practice it. Hold the B so the person can see that that's what you're signing. And then illion is just really fast. ILLION. Illion. Billion. Billion. Again, accuracy is more important than speed. So you want to get the bill in there. You want to get the L's in there. You want to get the I in there. You want to get the L in there. And then trillion is TR. And then illion. Again, do the TR slowly so the deaf person can see that that's what you're doing. So now you know up to trillion. Any questions about numbers?
What about quadrillion?
Quad? Brilliant. I don't know. I would. It's so unusual. It's so strange of a number. I would slowly finger spell that one, so that that person catches all those numbers, catches everything. It doesn't come up often. So this is a sign for money. This is a sign for dollars. And cents. Money, dollars, cents. So you certainly can say like $13.68, $13, and you do cents first. So you don't do 68 cents, you do cents 68, cents 68. Remember, there's a flip in the numbers that go 60 through 69. I'm sorry, 67 through 69. Or $9. I guess it goes up to 9. You can do. Okay, let's get this. I told you before about first, second, third, fourth, fifth. And you can do that up to 9. Okay. Don't confuse that with dollars, which is similar but not exactly the same. It's not a full twist. It's $1, $2, $3, $4, $5, 6, 7, 8, up to $9. But again, you always start with the cents and then you give the number of percents. Any questions about money? Okay. Age. The idea for age is you're signing old, whatever the number is, okay? But it has become over time just the letter, just the number 1. Do the number 1 down and out a little bit forward, and then you give the number, whatever it is, 13. I'm 13 years old. Age, 13. Time, you just start with, you're pointing to a watch, whether you have one or not. And then just do 1, 10, whatever it is, whatever the time is, 6:15, 6:15, whatever it is. It's very simple. Fractions, you just do the number, which is just do the 2 numbers one above the other. 1/2, 3/4, 6/7, whatever it is. You just drop the number down. Height is basically opposite. You go up with the numbers 5, 10, 5, 5, 6, 5, 8, 6, 10. So you start with however many feet it is down here, and then inches up here. 6, 10. Measurement, you just use English. So if it's foot, FT, yard, YD, mile, you can fingerspell, or MI maybe, or MIL. I would fingerspell the whole thing. Inch. Any questions? Questions? Any questions? They show you years here. There's nothing to years. It's you just do it. 1987, whatever it was. What year were you born? 2002, 2002, or 2002. 50, 50. I would do 50. All right. Any questions before I move on? All right, on page 45, it talks about types of signs, and it starts with gender signs. And notice how your head is divided 4 ways. Horizontally, up and down, is gender. So it came from old-fashioned times when a boy would wear a cap that had a brim on it. And that's where the sign for boy comes from, or male, anything male. Way back in the days, females used to wear a bonnet, and this represented the bonnet strings. So this means girl or general female. Anything. So we'll get into it later, but this is a sign for father. And the same sign, but on the female side of your face, down here is mother. We're going to get into compound signs in just a few minutes, but a couple of compound signs. Boy, same, was brother. Boy, same, a compound sign. In time, it became boy, same. Okay, but it came from that idea, boy, same. But this is the sign now for brother. And sister, what do you think? Girl, same. Sister. Okay. Boy or husband or man, marry. This is a sign for marry. This person puts their hand out, and this person puts their hand out, and they put them together. Marry. Male, marry his husband. What do you think wife is? Female, marry. Boy, baby. Start out boy, baby. In time, it has become son. You don't have to do the whole baby, just son, son, girl, baby, daughter. Okay, for some reason they throw in iconic signs here. I don't know why. It's fun. ASL has iconic signs and has non-iconic signs. They have iconic signs, which means signs that look like what they are. For example, they give you a great example here, elephant. Anybody would know this sign. They don't have to have learned sign language to know that I'm signing elephant. Another example, the American Sign Language sign for tree. Does anybody know the sign for tree? Exactly, good, very good, very good. This is the American Sign Language sign for tree. The Chinese Sign Language sign for tree is this. It's also very, very iconic. It's just different. So if you were to meet a deaf person and you didn't know the sign for whatever you wanted to say, my advice to you is always, what does it look like? That's the point. A deaf person can't hear. They don't care what it sounds like, whatever it is. They only care what it looks like. But if you sign it, you know, you're gonna end up with comprehension. You're gonna end up with communication. They're gonna understand what you're saying. That's all. ASL has some other signs that are not iconic at all. For example, bank. We just learned bank. It's a fingerspell loan sign. That's the only sign that there is. It doesn't look like a bank in any way whatsoever. It doesn't sound like a bank. It doesn't feel like a bank. It's not iconic in any way, but there are lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of signs that are iconic. And the more you study it, the more you see all the patterns in the ASL that, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense why those signs put together mean that. So let's talk about signs put together. In an ASL, there are a number of compound signs, and this is a good list that they give you, that if you were to translate into English, would have a different meaning than what is exactly, literally what is being signed. For example, eat, morning. Okay, eat and morning. Morning, your hand is on the inside of your elbow. But the compound sign in time has just become eat morning, eat morning. Without your sign, without on the inside, eat morning. Eat afternoon, lunch, eat afternoon, and eat dinner, eat night. Okay? Signed English came along to try and teach English to deaf kids, and they initialized all these signs. into B, breakfast, L, lunch, D, dinner. Okay? I'm going to tell you, as a whole, deaf people reject sign English, hate it, loathe it, despise it, because it was forced on them. Because hearing people created it and said, let's do this to your language, basically. And so they as I mentioned before, they initialized a whole lot of things. For example, the example I gave you before was this sign, which they made it with an A, which meant attempt, and then they put it with a T, which meant try, and E for effort. And deaf people just like said, absolutely not. We absolutely despise that. But deaf people really kind of like breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and really have kind of accepted that in their culture. So ignore everything else I told you about deaf people and initialization. When it comes to breakfast, lunch, and dinner, they kind of like that one, and it made sense. So you'll see a whole lot of deaf people sign breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And it's much easier than breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But those are the official signs. The official sign for remember used to be no, and the sign for continue. In time, it has just become remember. Remember, instead of doing no, you just do it with your thumb. Remember. Now, that means, remember, that means no, continue. If you say to somebody, now remember, we're going to have a test on Tuesday. Okay. That's just keep in mind. Just that's just, you don't need the continue part. That's just remember. Keep in mind, okay. Student used to be officially learn, which is taking stuff from a printed page and sucking it into your brain, basically. Learn, that's still a sign for learn. But over time, the sign for student became student. Instead of learn, it just became, we're about to learn about this sign for student, for agent, for a person who does something. So what student actually means is learn, a person who learns. But in time, instead of going all the way up to your head, which is kind of a pain, it just becomes student. I disagree with disagree. I don't really clip that sign. I sign it exactly the same as it should be signed. I guess maybe some people clip it or change it in some ways, but I just do think different, think opposite. Think opposite. All right, and son, I already told you, and daughter, I already told you. Sister, brother, parents, mother, father, mother, father. Bible is Jesus' book. This is Jesus, for the crucifixion and book, Jesus' book. There are definitely other signs for Bible. That's all I'll say. Homework. The sign for home is itself a compound. This is home. And it used to be home, the place where you eat and sleep. Home. It's become home. You don't have to do this home now. Just home. And I showed you the sign for homework. I'm sorry, showed you the sign for work. So homework. Homework. And it says, there's a note in here that it says that it's very common for a language to change a little bit and make it more convenient, like to sign sister. It's just easier to sign sister than sister. Or remember as opposed to remember. And all languages do that. And the example that they give you here is cupboard. You take cup, and you take board, but you don't pronounce it as cupboard. You pronounce it as cupboard. It changes to become something else altogether. So it's very common in another language for that to happen. Moving on. A person who does something is whatever that thing is, and you do agent after it. So student is a learner, and I told you about how that has been changed in time, but teacher has not changed. This is a sign for teach. You have stuff that's coming out of your brain, emanating from your brain. You're the teacher. So the teach is a teacher. Teacher. Walker would be walk. Run. This is a sign for run. Eat. Drink. Okay. So whatever the person is, it's doing that thing. Loan signs, I'm not sure why they talk about it here, but they talk about it here. You mostly only see these in foreign language signs. And this was a definite concerted effort in the 1980s to get rid of the old ASL signs for different countries and different peoples that were offensive. And so they wanted to get rid of the offensive signs, and so they went with the sign that that country uses in their own sign language. Okay, so the old sign for Chinese was this: it's offensive, and so we don't sign that anymore. So we borrowed the sign that Chinese sign language uses to say Chinese, which is Chinese. I don't know if you can see me. Chinese. They weren't all necessarily offensive. Well, for example, I'll just give you a few others. Japanese was done with a J, also offensive. This is a sign now. This is the sign that Japanese sign language uses for Japan. And so we borrowed that. For some reason, this was the sign for German. It meant the German eagle. It represented the German eagle. but the German sign for German is German. If I can pull my it down with a one on top of their head. I think that's more offensive than our sign, but that's their sign. So, okay, whatever. Well, whatever, you use their sign. And other things just changed in life. When I was growing up, this was a sign for Soviet Union. If you can see me. So I'm sort of hitting my hips with that with my hands. But we don't have a Soviet Union anymore. So this is the Russian sign for Russia. So we just borrowed all these signs from their language. And we don't use the old signs anymore, ever. They're really kind of frowned upon. Okay. Name signs I mentioned briefly, and if somebody was to do a report about that, that would be fine. Name signs are signs given usually by deaf people, and it's just a sign for that person. It's not the sign for the name. So if your name is Maureen and you like purple, you certainly could end up with a name sign like Maureen, even though it has nothing to do with Maureen. It has nothing to do with name. With M, that's a sign for purple, but some people might like that. Other people, if they're really tall, if they're really short, if they have a physical characteristic, it's not offensive. A lot of times name signs are based on that. Sometimes it's just the first letter of their name done over the heart, like F, whatever it might be. Does anybody remember what I told you my name sign is? Right, D on the ear. Good. All right, the signs for no. I told you about the sign for no, and that's the sign to respond, yes or no. But it's not necessarily a sign for any negative thing. They're throwing in the sign for this, which means not, isn't, don't, doesn't. What else? Just negative, just negativeness. There's just negativeness. But there's also the sign that means this one. If you were to say, I have no children, I have no patience, I have no time. 0. It's a quantitative no. It's not this no. No. This is a no to a yes or no question. This is a quantitative. I have 0 things. All right. I'm going to do one more. Since I already talked about initialized signs, I'm going to continue talking about initialized signs. ASL does have some initialized signs. It's true. It's a fact. I can't deny it. For example, days of the week and colors. Good. Great. Thank you. That's just the only sign that there is. They're initialized. I can't help it. But the concept doesn't exist solely in ASL. It's something that's borrowed from general culture, American culture. So days of the week are initialized. Monday, you'll see it two ways. You'll see it sometimes backward. You'll see it sometimes you'll see the back of their hand or the front of their hand. Tuesday, same thing. Wednesday, same thing. Thursday can either be TH or just H. Thursday. Friday, Saturday. They're just initialized is true. And then Sunday, there's a lot of different Sundays. There's a lot of different signs for Sunday. My sister signed Sunday. I don't know why. My sister, by the way, went to Pennsylvania School for the Deaf, which was the second school for the deaf ever founded in the United States. And they have some really bizarre signs, some really bizarre Philadelphia signs. There are places in the country that usually around schools for the deaf, they kind of tend to have their own signs, kind of signing style. It's not their own signs. It's just their own, some of their own signs, but it's just their own style. And Philadelphia is really famous for that. They have their own very, very Philadelphia style. I'll try and keep that out of my signing as much as I possibly can. Other initialized signs often are colors. Green is just the letter G, shaken. Blue is the letter B, shaken. P is the letter P, shaken. Purple, blue. Okay, all right, but this is a good list of signs that you will find very often that are initialized. This is a sign for arithmetic or math or that kind of thing. All right. It's not A's, it's not arithmetic. It's just the concept of doing math. Initialization came along and said, let's do M for math, A for algebra, however you're supposed to say it, C for calculus. Okay, whatever. Another sign is commonly initialized, attitude. I don't know why, but it just is. Boss. Beer. It's very often finger spelled also. Biology. This is a sign for science. Biology, chemistry. Blue, I showed you. Cafeteria. I don't know why. It just is. Calculus, I just showed you. Character is like attitude, only with a C. Character. Character. There's also character that you do in your palm, which would be the character of a story. This is character that means attitude. Character, attitude, personality is personality with a P. So it's those kind of attributes. Attitude, character, personality, character in a book. Christian is initialized. There are a lot of signs that go across your chest like this. But Christian is one of them. But there will be more on this list. Class is often initialized. If it's not initialized like that, class, can you tell the difference between the, I'm sorry, I missed that question. I'll look it up in chat. Just a group of people, not initialized, is group. So they took that and they initialized it. Class, G, group. I think that's all. Class and group. Coach. Cousin. How do you sign it if it's a female cousin? Excellent. Down here. It's with a C down here. C up here. Cousins, my cousins, meaning both, or male and female. For whatever reason, elevator is signed elevator. It's signed with an E. Oh, they also, in that group, class, group with F's is family. Friday, you already know. Fruit, I already showed you. Geometry is math with G's. Green, I showed you, is shaken, G. Group, I showed you. There are a number of different signs for hospital. They're not all initialized, but some of them are. But I'm getting confused if one of these is a Philadelphia sign. But you're always good with a hospital. And that's something you can do anywhere. This or this, I'm not, those are signs for hospital, but they might be Philadelphia signs, so I'm not sure about that. I'm going to take law out of there and say next to king and lord are both initialized with the same sign. King with a K, lord with a L. I think there's another religious sign. I don't do religious signing, but I think there's, in addition to Lord, which is L this way, I think you can do Lord starting this way and ending it with L this way. I'm not sure when it would be used. I'm not sure if there's a difference between this and this. I don't know. Math, I told you. Monday, I told you. Nurses and taking a pulse. Nurse. Office is often a fingerspell don't sign. Office, it's fingerspell fast. But if you don't want to do that, it's just a sign for room. This is a sign for room. Start off with this and end up with this. But they started initializing it, so they So office is now done with O's very often. Room with R's. But just those are some of the things that some of deaf people really hate and really resent. The fact that these signs were created and are used by some people. Some deaf people would much rather fingerspell office than be caught dead signing office. It's just not ASL. This is ASL. A painting is an O done up by your head. Organization is one of those group signs, like group, family, done with O's, organization. But look at how much that looks like office. Deaf people hate it, hate it, hate it, hate it. But you'll see it. Patient is hospital done with a P. Patient. Police. I guess that's initialized sometimes. I've never ever seen that I can remember anybody's initializing police. This is a sign for cop or policeman. So if it was initialized, it would be something like that. I hate it. No. Principal, as in not the head of your school, but an idea. Principal. Totally signed English, totally forced on deaf people, but you'll see it. Prince and princess are almost the same. And they're that same Lord, King kind of sign, done with a P. Prince or girl prince is princess. It's sexist because if you don't say girl, you just assume it's a boy. Prince, girl prince. Purple, you just shake a P. Queen is one of those sass kind of things done with a Q. Restaurant. I don't know why, but that's where cafeteria came from. Restaurant came first, and then cafeteria. Restroom is just a polite way of saying bathroom. I don't know why, but it is kind of, if it's formal or mixed company, you'll tend to see deaf people sign restroom. All right, I told you about room. This is a sign for flower. Kind of makes sense, huh? Kind of iconic, isn't it? So rose is done with an R. It's really the only one. You don't want to get into tulip and daffodil and no. Just rose is initialized. Anything else you would do, flower, tulip, flower, daffodil, whatever it is. Establish what it is that we're talking about first, and then fingerspell it. Saturday is a shaken S. Society is one of those group signs, like group, family, S, society. State is initialized. I don't know why it's done this way, but you do see it very often this way in any kind of setting. Team is another one of the group signs done with a T. Team. Thursday, I already told you, or there are two signs. What are they? Just an H or TH? Just H or TH? Trigonometry, I've never had to worry about it, but if I had to, it would be done with a T. Tuesday, vegetable. Yeah, I guess it's initialized. Yeah, it's initialized. I'm sorry, it's initialized. Vegetable, fruit. Wednesday, wine is like you're drinking, but only with a W. And yellow is another one that's a yellow color that's shaken. Perfect. Thank you very much, Leslie. I had a question. You were sold about 5 earlier. How do you tell the difference between the name and the religion? Can you explain your question? I don't understand the question. How do you tell the difference between the name and the religion? What do you mean by that? Who asked that question? The sign for Christian. Oh, no, there's no difference. The name and the religion. If a person were named Christian, chances are that would be their name sign. Not necessarily. If they were Christian and they had a huge nose, then their name sign might be Christian. Or certainly in the old days when they wouldn't pick on people, but they would pick characteristics. But if a person has a big nose and acknowledges the fact that they have a big nose, maybe then that's their name sign, and they admit it. And so it wouldn't be Christian, because even though the English word is Christian, the name sign has to do with a characteristic or a trait or a preference or something, not necessarily the name that goes with it. All right, I'm switching to the red book. P man.